Hey, good morning, everyone. Hey, Goldie, when Jonathan came up, you said he was the fabulous Jonathan Moak, and then I was just Jordan Gillis, so noted. Hey, look, it's great to see so many familiar faces and also so many new friends here today. And thanks in advance to the panelists for being here with us. We really have a stage full, yours truly accepted, of accomplished public servants. And we'll go down the line and let everybody introduce themselves. But first, let me tee this panel up just a bit. So the title is Meeting Mission Requirements Through Enhanced Efficiencies. All right. If we were in the private sector, you might call that something like delivering shareholder value through artificial intelligence or maximizing profit through enterprise automation. But in the federal government, the mission is something different. The mission that you deliver through to various stakeholders, whether it's your customers or Congress or the taxpayers, the mission is how you organize to go to work. And so that's the driving force behind what we're going to talk about today, which is how these organizations or agencies are embracing technology for efficient operations. So without further ado, let's go right down the line. We'll do introductions and then we'll jump into it.
Thanks, Jordan. Good afternoon. My name is Colin Crosby, and I'm the Service Data Officer for the Marine Corps, as well as the Deputy Dawn CDO. So in a sense, I work for Stuart at the end underneath him as one of his deputies on the Marine Corps side.
Hey, good morning. Adarryl Roberts, CIO, Defense Logistics Agency. A little info on our mission. Of course, we do logistics on behalf of the Department of Defense. But when you talk about technology, AI, and things of that nature, what's a little known fact, we also manage DoD level programs such as DAI, DPAS, PI, and others on behalf of the department.
Morning, Dan Rogers, Deputy Chief Data and AI Officer for the Coast Guard.
Good morning, Stuart Wagner, Chief Data and AI Officer for the Department of the Navy. Good to be on stage here.
Awesome. All right, so without further ado, why don't we'll start with Stuart and work our way back, but same question for everyone. How has automation or AI, or fill in the blank for your favorite technology, improved the efficient operations within your agency, and what are some of the most impactful results you've observed?
Yeah, I think there's two ways in which data and AI, if I were to bucket them, improve kind of operations generally. The first is, like, as you aggregate data, it may actually alter the decision you would have made without access to some data. And so improving decision making is definitely one of them. The second is going to be like speeding up different processes, different bureaucratic processes, or potentially even other weapons processes as well, tactical processes as well. Within the Department of Defense, where I've worked, as well as the Department of Navy, we've seen both of those, right? A couple examples come to mind. One is some work we did while I was at Advana, running development and engineering for Advana. We created basically a crawler and search engine. We applied basically glue code to existing open source libraries, somewhat similar to what's taking place with LLMs now today, where we enabled basically the workforce to be able to search policy and more quickly make sense of policy using semantic capabilities. That became the most popular application within Advana. And so the demand exists within the DoD for these sorts of capabilities to improve efficiency and make impacts. The second we've seen that I've seen actually is a hackathon series I worked on, in which we were able to basically increase the amount of interest and leverage of data and AI by getting the data to a specific location, a development environment where people can build stuff, and ultimately deploy it in a time-boxed environment.
Captain Rogers?
Yeah, so for the Coast Guard, if I just think recently, one of the big things that we're required to do is we secure the maritime border, especially the southern border. So on the maritime approaches, we need to figure out, again, alien interdiction migrant flows, what direction are people coming from, and can we predict it? Can we predict it based on state of the moon, sea state? Like, there's a lot of various factors that actually feed into that. So if you can figure out when you need assets, where you need them, it works a whole lot better for actual operations in that sense. And then I'll switch to a business operations example, which I'll give you two. So if we think, like, how do we operate overall and how do we improve our operation, one of the things that's interesting about the government is, again, it's all related to finance, right? All the controls are related to, okay, what are you required to do, and then how are you actually budgeted to do those things? And then there's a ton of rules associated with how you execute those funds, especially if you're going to pass audit, which Coast Guard's been passing audit for a lot of years now. No attribution there. Anyway, so because we do that, we have some very strict financial controls inside the system. But that means we also can have repetitive transactions. So one of the places that we've used automation and returned a ton of money back to the Coast Guard is by creating bots to deobligate funds for anything that's a repetitive overall purchase, which then frees those funds for us to be able to use for other things. And then the second example I'll give is we did a really cool automation project for our training quota center. So, which these guys, the training requests come in, and then we do all of the, where's everybody going to go to training? And that's just a massive, complex project. Well, we mapped the whole project and then figured out we can automate pretty much all of this. Went through a process of testing the automation, validating the overall process, and now every morning you just hit a button and there's your overall list of trainings for the entire Coast Guard. So those are just some examples of both on the operational side and then, like I said, kind of more the business operations aspects of how we're doing things in the Coast Guard.
Yeah, so we've accelerated our appraisal system because everyone's using ChatGPT. Right there, no, I'm joking. So I think we've learned a lot. We've been on an automation journey for a while. And what we're doing now, we're really doing something called Connected Enterprise, Connected IT, where we're fusing people, technology, data, AI automation, and really starting with what problems are we solving for. And instead of saying, okay, I want to apply AI here, I want to apply automation there, we're really looking at where do we need automation, vice AI, and vice versa. And so we've done that. The plan for that is to democratize that throughout the agency, so as much as possible have the bots and the AI being built at the edge. So we've created digital citizen training programs at DLA to support that. Some examples of automation at DLA, of course, we do about 10,000 purchase orders a day through our contracts, which no one touches. We've automated some functions in terms of goods receipts, things of that nature. We're working on some pilots for AI with audit and also a supply chain simulation tool. So you can do scenario-based with changing weather conditions, changes in market, not just looking at internal data, but external data as well.
And Dr. Crosby.
First of all, I love the fact that we're talking data at an AI conference. So, that puts a smile on my face all the time. But AI automation has improved significantly. It improved the workload and what we do. Just look at it from a cybersecurity aspect of things. And PCAP data, capturing data within the environment, gigabytes of data that will take analysts days to go through. Now we can go through that in seconds, minutes to seconds. We can look at it, we can move from a reactive to proactive in the cyber environment alone, going after, making sure that we have the right capabilities in place. So AI, just from that cybersecurity part, is a significant impact within our environment. And other impacts involve computer vision at the edge, being able to capture image, label, tagged image at the edge that will allow analysts to do their job that much faster. So automation, AI within the Marine Corps, as we have seen the dividends already, and we're leaning in from a very strong point, making sure that we do get involved and we do understand the technology and not just input the technology, but re-engineer what we do from a bottom up. Because if you just stick it in into the process. It doesn't work sometimes. You have to re-engineer it. You have to look at how we do business from the bottom up, and that's what we're starting to see the more impacts going forward.
No, that's excellent. So, and for the panelists, we'll probably do questions 3 and 5, just based on time. And so in this room, we're probably preaching to the choir, but in your organizations, whether we're talking about AI or automation for tactical decision making or as applied to more traditional back office functions, what kind of roadblocks or resistance or hurdles have you had to overcome to implement some of the great things that you talked about? And in no particular order, whoever wants to chime in, please feel free. Yes, sir.
Sure. So the way I think about basically producing from the Don perspective, what we're really interested in, one of the areas we're really interested in is data-driven effects. Basically, how do you go from the creation of data to an effect rapidly? That's sort of your timeline to learn and adapt, which if you look at like Ukraine or CENTCOM or other areas, basically like the speed to learn and adapt, we think could distinguish who wins and who deters in a war. And so as a consequence, there's a series of things that you need to think about as you go and do that. We call that the bits to effects cycle. There's basically 5 things you must do. Those are also 5 things that if you don't do, you don't make it to the effect. Those are instrumentation and collection of data. If you don't collect the data off a weapons system or off an operational system, you cannot produce an effect. The second is the ability to transmit the data engineering and the ability to move the data to a machine or physical person that's going to do something with the data. The third is classification and access. If you don't have access to the data, either to the robots that are doing stuff with it or the humans that are doing something with it, there's again no effect. The fourth is your development and analytics environment, which we assert should be at the classification level of the data. So being able to dev directly with the data is very important. We're seeing that like machine learning models that are produced without that data and then are trained later with that data aren't performing so well. And then finally, you must implement and collect that data. You must implement the effect and collect data from it, sort of like a digital OODA loop. And so this is like the primary thing we're thinking about in terms of both obstacles and methodology to get to an effect utilizing data. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Are we just coming back in order, Captain Rogers?
I don't mind. Yeah. So what I would say is, to his point, it's the who's going to do that inside the organization. So I would describe that as kind of the scaffolding of actually moving this whole thing forward. And one of the interesting things, I'll just give you a metaphor. So if you think of a company like a landscape, right, and it's got cities and it's got ports and it's got farms, and we want to connect all those things, and we want the thing to go. Well, I feel like I'm kind of like the train guy. I sell trains and I sell tracks. That's what I sell. But when I talk to people, they're always telling me how amazing it would be if I could get to this city or this farm or this port. And I love it. I would love to go to those places, but you got to understand I sell trains. Right? So what I'm trying to do is create the people across that landscape, the owners of the farms and the ports and the cities. So in our case, we call that domains. And so what we're doing in the Coast Guard is we're leveraging across the domains the Coast Guard principles of operations. So, and one of those principles is on-scene initiative, which means I need the domain owners to be driving the overall scenario, and we're providing them what they need so that I have a belly button for you guys on if you focus on maritime domain awareness, or you have a particular thing in logistics, and you're really good at this thing, that I know exactly who you need to talk to. And so that's what we're working on this year, is building out those domain data teams. And then once the foundation is laid, you can build a doghouse, a warehouse, or a skyscraper on top of it, depending on how much we want to invest and what those capabilities are. So our whole approach is about building the scaffolding to do exactly what he's describing.
Yeah, so from a DLA perspective, I'll speak more about data standardization and normalization across the department. The void of policy, operators, and transparency. We don't do a good job in the government of making sure the left hand knows what the right is doing and coordinating those efforts, right? So we'll put a policy out before we even know if we have the ability to even execute that policy, but it's already has a due date by which you're trying to accomplish. And so I see the same in terms of trying to do AI and move faster, where like was described in terms of classification of data, things of that nature. I think we just have to relook at some of the data and how we're doing that to streamline that process, right? Like, I don't know if Ms. Arrington talked about this morning, but her concept of blowing up the RMF, right? Hey, one ATO, you don't have to redo it. Like, there are just certain things we duplicate in terms of effort when it comes to data management that I think we can streamline. And then also just for us, I would say our plan of using AI, like I told my team I never want to create another dashboard again, right? Because with the rate of change and pace, you really want a dynamic visualization of the data based on the question that you're asking. And that's how industry does it, right? You guys go into a board meeting, you're making decisions, you're not spending time building a Capt, making sure the data works the way it is. It's objective data that comes out. You trust the data, right? So that's another big thing we have. People don't trust the AI data. So we'll spend the money to use the AI, get the data results, and then we'll scrutinize it for 6 months, even though it took us a couple hours or a day or two to get it. So between the culture change of trusting what you can do with AI and the data, but also some standardization, so it makes it easier for industry to support what we're doing.
So I agree with my panel members, but the one thing that, from my perspective, that I see as roadblocks or challenges is really from the people perspective and understanding. It's not that people are afraid of the technology, they just don't understand how the technology can work for them. And until we can communicate that more effectively to the organization, to the individuals, then you're going to find some challenges, some pushbacks from that. And so that's something that we've taken to heart, and we're looking to do more effective in understanding how we can communicate and how we can bypass, or at least show the individuals how this is there to benefit and help accelerate and become more efficient, other than just a pushback, take away, and no, I'm not going to do that. So in interest of time, I think the people part is for me, and communicating and understanding, that's where we need to be better at as an organization.
Yeah, it's just to kind of piggyback. I think you're right. We need to demystify AI and some of the things, because we make it sound like this monolithic unicorn, and it's just another tool as a force multiplier. And I think if you demystify it, it makes it simpler to understand.
Well, and I think the best way to demystify it is to give people samples. And this is a piece that I've been after, is whether it's like a Chick-fil-A sample or a Lay's potato chip, forget not just one, you're going to want the whole bag once you start tasting these things. And so that's really what I'm trying to do, is if we can roll this out, even on small basis, then you're gonna have those people become the advocates, and then the organic movement is actually a much more effective way of selling this organizationally than having somebody come in and talk in these kind of nebulous, like, we need the data for the enterprise to make better decisions. I mean, duh, but what's that mean?
I think it's a good point. One thing that I've observed in industry, is that a lot of data-driven capabilities usually don't start out the way they look today. They're often increasingly refined through the automatic collection of data and calibrated every day to improve slightly every day, but it compounds and produces effects. I think as we think about how we deploy AI and data-driven systems within the Department of the Navy, it's going to be critical to be able to increasingly refine and calibrate every day based off the automatic collection of data.
No, that's perfect. So we hear that a lot out in the marketplace, the challenges both with culture and with data. Everybody seems to have to deal with. I'll tell you the thing that gives me the most hope culturally, that is that if you look at this panel on the stage, we are all aligned to drive change, and you got a guy wearing penny loafers, and you got Nikes, and you got uniform shoes, all aligned and driving toward a future vision that is going to make government more efficient, that's going to make each of the agencies more efficient and able to deliver their missions. And sorry we didn't get to our third question, which is about future trends. So feel free to engage our panel members at the break or at lunch on that. And we're about to get the hook. So thank you all very much, and thanks to our panel.